Hello and welcome to the vlog. In 2 weeks from now I need to be moored up. I've got some personal stuff to do and possibly even some paid work stuff to do, so I need to be heading back towards my mooring. This was always part of the plan, but it does mean with only 2 weeks to go that I do need to get a bit of a scoot on and not hang around anywhere too much, which is why, having arrived in Stratford-on-Avon only yesterday, I am now pressing on again today. There are two things I think that will be of note today. First of all, as you go out of Stratford, there's a lot of locks. I think it's 16 in all. You've got 4 immediately coming out of town, then there's a random 1, and then there's a flight of 11 taking you up to Wilmcote. And I have heard that some of those locks, they're only narrow locks, but I've heard that some of the paddle gear and some of the gates are extremely difficult to operate. So we'll see what that brings forth. And then secondly, and I only discovered this rather foolishly having arrived here, there are 2 very low road bridges on the way out of Stratford where the headroom is extremely limited, and my guidebook says about 6 feet, and I measured the air draft on my boat at about, you guessed it, 6 feet. So I'm going to take the TV aerial fully off, the solar panels fully down, treat it a bit like I did at Hare Castle, and just go very, very slowly. I've seen other boats coming through, they seem to be fine, so I'm hoping it won't be a problem, but let's find out. Goodbye Stratford Basin, it's been a pleasure stopping here, even if for only one night. And yes, I've speeded this bit up because I was exiting quite gently. Past the trip boat and up towards the second ice cream boat. That one looks like it'll be in the way for lining up for the bridge, but in fact it's recessed slightly, so is no problem at all. Breathe in and crouch down. It looks and feels tight, but actually there is several inches above those solar panels. Some moorings on the other side if the basin was not to your taste. And up to the second low bridge, which I think may be even lower than the first. There's also a lock immediately on the other side, so you may need to get off and set it before you go under, though there is no bollard to tie to stop the boat floating backwards when you empty the lock, so you have to pull up before the bridge. Ooh yes, tight again, but no problem. And here's the boat almost at the top of the lock. That dog is definitely curious about the swans. Look ahead and you'll see me on the next lock, emptying it while the boat finished rising the last few inches in this one. And after 2 low bridges, this was also a bit squishy, but for another reason. A friendly passerby has just told me that the lock I've just been in, lock 2, is the narrowest of all the locks, because some of these locks were built very, very narrow indeed, and that's apparently the narrowest. Also, good news, there's a boat coming out of the lock ahead, so I won't have to open the gates. I should just be able to shoot straight in. And of course I've left my gate open for them to go into the one I've just vacated as well. Passing in lock pounds is a bit like boat ballet, especially when speeded up. He goes that way, I go this way, and indeed we have both left gates open for each other. Good, friendly, helpful boating. Another low bridge, but nothing like as bad as the previous ones, and into the chamber. The lower Stratford locks, you'll notice, have only a single gate at each end, instead of the usual 2 half-width gates. I'd read that this made them harder to work, but really it was much easier just dealing with 1 instead of 2 each time, and I really preferred this system. Notice the lack of space for a conventional balance beam here, so you get a metal lattice sticking out at 90 degrees. That last boat coming down said they'd come down the entire flight, which should mean that every lock is already empty, so I don't have to waste precious minutes emptying them before I can go in. That is a massive time saver. Unless, of course, there's a boat ahead of me going up the flight, but they didn't make any mention of that. Gosh, what a surprise! Another bridge followed by a lock. The exit from Stratford was certainly following a consistent pattern, and after the glorious width of cruising up a river over the previous few days, the narrowness of the canals was suddenly coming back to me in full effect. Look at that dodgy brickwork where boaters have hit the sides. Could this be the world's only float-through fast food restaurant? Let me know in the comments if you know of any others. I was about halfway out of town at this point, and there's a winding hole right ahead and a facilities point coming up. I'd say these are tired ducks. The moorings belong to a hire boat firm based along here, although those are not hire boat themselves. I always think of E.T. when I see these, but it's a painting dock, not an FBI investigation, and rather ingeniously it's a floating painting dock too. There's the hire base, and just tucked down the side of it you can spot the boaters' facilities, which are for any boater, not just the hire firm. As I was making decent time and the weather was good, I took a moment to empty the toilet and refill the water tank. Then onwards, with just over a mile of open canal with one solitary lock, until the next set of 11 locks in quick succession. Yesterday was the hottest day of the year so far in the UK, with parts of the country hotter than places like Istanbul, things like that, I believe. Not so hot so far today. There's a little bit of haze in the sky. There's definitely a slightly better wind keeping me a little bit cool, but that haze is starting to burn off a little, so I think we're in for another scorcher of an afternoon. So far though, it's alright, it's quite pleasant. I see a lot of herons on the waterways, but these are my first cranes. Here's that solitary lock, number 51 on the Stratford Canal. They're counting down as I go further up. And someone else was coming down, so a brief pause for me while they did the hard work. At this point, you've just left Stratford behind, and now it's pretty much countryside all the way to Lapworth, where I'd switch onto the Grand Union. Of the 11 locks in the next mile, the first 3 are bundled together here. I cannot resist filming a cat on the towpath. Hello, puss! But I'd not met one of these before, though I believe there are a few around. I'll just slip round to the other side of it. That's better. Is it a terrapin? He was enjoying some sunshine along with his duck friends. The first lock was dispatched quickly, so here I am heading up to the second. It's always very satisfying in a flight to pause and look back to see how far and how high you've come. Well, hooray, after the mild aggravation of having to empty this lock before I could come in, and then thinking all the rest of the flight would be set like that, which I think they were, I just went up to empty the next one. Lo and behold, there's another boat coming down, and that means here on in all the rest of the locks should be set my way again, which is good news because the sun is now starting to really get quite warm again. A quick pas de deux and they're out and I was in. There is a phrase, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Well, it is now midday and I've got 7 more locks to do, so I'm definitely going to press on. And there they are, but in fact it was 8 more. I must have been hallucinating in the sunshine. It really is much easier to just open one gate. Saves all that dodgy leaping over the lock. Nice shorts. I'm sorry you had to see that, but it really was very hot. Here we go again. marvellous. And the next one was left open for me too. This was really turning into an excellent lock flight. Oh, and look, another boat coming out. It was going so well, it's almost as if something terrible could be about to happen. Surely not. Not on such a lovely summer's day, making such good progress. Could it? Woohoo! Look at all those locks. I'll be moored up for tea in no time. Oh, wait. Hang on a minute. I knew it was too good to last.
An interesting little situation here. I was having great trouble opening the top gates on this lock, and I went to check that the bottom gate, the paddle was fully down. It was fully down, but it did look like the gate was nonetheless letting water out. Finally managed to get the top gate open to come out, and the next pound is practically empty. So the water is draining away. I can't go forward because I will just end up sitting on the canal bed. Luckily, the canal lockies are just based down at the next lock, so I've gone and had a word, and they're going to come and work some magic, I hope.
On the face of it, the pound doesn't look too bad until you peer a little more closely at the edges, where that mud should definitely not be seeing the light of day, and the tide mark on the Armco suggests a substantial drop. In the lock itself, the level was also dropping because of that leak on the back gate. I'd filled this to full just 10 minutes earlier. But the lockies went up and spent an hour or so dribbling water down from higher up, and eventually I was given the all clear to refill the lock, open the gate and make my way out into the pound. It still wasn't exactly full, but there was enough for me to float. Apparently the gate's been leaking like that for months, and this is a regular occurrence the lockies have just got used to. They said they're hopeful of the Canal and River Trust fixing it this winter. I made it to the next lock, and there's something of interest at the far end. One of the bridges typical of this stretch of canal, with a gap between the bridge plates. In the days when boats were pulled by a horse, the rope could be passed through here so that the horse didn't have to be unhitched when the boat went into the lock. Notice how the water level's now low further up the canal because of the lockies having to send some down to where I was stuck. See that boat leaning on the bottom instead of floating? If they're lucky, all their plates and crockery won't have gone crashing onto the floor. I kept very firmly to the middle of the canal where it's deepest. I didn't want to get stuck on the bottom. Remember how I said I was having to get used to the width of the canals after enjoying all the space on the river? As if to taunt you, this stretch of the Stratford Canal is peppered with these bridges, just wide enough for one narrowboat. Notice the missing brickwork on the right, where boats have cocked this up. I hoped I wasn't going to be one of them. Let's listen. Damn it! Yep, peppered with these, and this one on a bend too. I didn't thump this one though. This is the village of Wilmcote, once the home of Shakespeare's mother, not to be confused with Sylvia's mother, who won't let her daughter come to the phone. I don't know anything about this house or set of houses, but I rather liked it. And after doing all those locks on a very hot day, this looked like a good spot to try to find somewhere to stop for the night, so I pulled in here.
Good morning. It's going to be another scorcher of a day today apparently. Temperatures forecast to hit 34 degrees Celsius. It's slightly hazy skies at the moment, but clearly it is going to be another lovely day. Should be an interesting one too, not least because about a mile and a half north of here is the Edstone Aqueduct, apparently the longest aqueduct in England, and that should be just stunning views and possibly a little bit scary as well.
I set off with the birds singing encouragement. And of course, a selection of those darned bridges to wriggle the boat through. Okay. And again. Look at that damaged brickwork. You can't quite see it, but the aqueduct is behind that boat. Here we go. It's 200 yards long. Don't look down. And out the other side, where a day hire boat is about to experience the aqueduct in the other direction. Me, I had a lock to go into, barely lock, number 39 on this canal, with a rise of 5 feet 10 inches. Again, doesn't seem like I'm paying attention though. At least I went under this bridge without a bang. Someone was building a new marina on the right here. Those are definitely the posts that pontoons would be mounted onto. And that is clearly the beginnings of a marina entrance. Google now tells me it's Hill Farm Marina and it's open. What a lovely spot. Another aqueduct is ahead, albeit on a much smaller scale, just a road crossing. The building is a hire firm base with a fleet you'll see in just a second. This I don't know anything about, but of course it's always hilarious when someone tries to scrawl out the letter C from canal. There's the fleet, so shiny. I'm amazed they weren't all out on hire, given it was mid-June and the weather was fantastic. Come the apocalypse, he will be all right for power. A very popular little mooring spot this, with the village of Wootten Wawen a short walk away. Oh goody, not only a narrow bridge, but an audience on top of it too. I made it through without incident. And this looked like a decent spot for me to settle down. So I did. Cheerio.